Nothing is wrong with your life. So why do you feel empty? You wake up. You have a home. People who know you. Things to look forward to. Maybe you even have the life you once dreamed about. And still, something feels wrong. Not enough to call it sadness. Not enough to call it failure. Just a quiet feeling that something is missing. You keep asking yourself, what is wrong with me? Maybe nothing. Maybe the problem is not your life. Maybe it is what you have been taught to expect from life. You were told happiness would come after the next achievement. After more money. After success. After being noticed. After becoming someone you could finally be proud of. So you keep moving. You achieve something. You feel good. Then the feeling fades. And your mind whispers, what's next? So you chase again. And again. And again. The Stoics saw this trap long before the modern world turned it into a lifestyle. They understood that desire has no natural finish line. You can have enough. And still feel poor. You can have peace. And still search for excitement. You can have everything. And still believe something is missing. Because the mind can turn abundance into dissatisfaction. Look at your own life. How often do you enjoy what you have? Without immediately thinking about what comes next? That question matters. Because maybe emptiness is not always a sign that you need something new. Sometimes. It is a sign that you have forgotten how to be present with what is already yours. The Stoic truth is uncomfortable. You may spend your entire life trying to build a better life. While never learning how to live the one you already have. And that is where the real question begins. What if the life you keep trying to improve was never the thing making you empty? There is a moment that happens after every achievement. You finally get what you wanted. And for a little while, everything feels different. You feel lighter. You feel proud. You think, this was it. But then, the feeling fades. And something strange happens. Your mind immediately searches for the next thing. Another goal. Another purchase. Another achievement. Another reason to feel excited. You barely notice it. But this is how emptiness grows. Not because you have nothing. Because you never stay long enough to experience what you have. The Stoics understood this. They knew that desire can become endless. The moment you reach one mountain, your mind points toward another. And you start believing happiness is always waiting somewhere ahead. When I have more. When I become better. When people respect me. When my life finally looks right. Then I'll be happy. But notice what happens. The future keeps moving. And your happiness keeps moving with it. You are physically living today. But mentally waiting for tomorrow. That is exhausting. Because no achievement can permanently satisfy a mind that has been trained to expect another one. So try something different. The next time you achieve something, don't immediately ask, what should I chase now? Pause. Stay there. Let yourself experience it. Appreciate it. Not because you should stop growing. But because growth means nothing if you never experience the life you're building. The Stoic lesson is simple. Wanting more is not always the problem. Needing more before you allow yourself to feel complete is. And maybe that is why your life can look full, while your mind still feels empty. You keep waiting for something to complete you, without realizing that the endless waiting is what keeps you from feeling complete. Sometimes the emptiness comes from living a life that looks right, but doesn't feel like yours. You follow the path everyone respects. Study. Work. Achieve. Improve. Repeat. From the outside, everything looks fine. But inside, you keep wondering, is this what I actually want? That question can be frightening. Because maybe you have spent years building a life around expectations. What your family wanted. What society praised. What people around you considered successful. So you learn to chase things, before learning to ask whether they mattered to you. The Stoics believed a good life required self-knowledge. You cannot live well if you never stop to examine how you are living. Think about your goals. How many of them are truly yours? And how many did you inherit from other people? Maybe you want success, because success makes you feel worthy. Maybe you want attention, because being noticed makes you feel important. Maybe you want a perfect life, because you are afraid of being judged. But if the applause disappeared, would you still want the same things? That question changes everything. Because emptiness can appear when your actions and your values move in different directions. You keep achieving, but you don't feel connected to what you're achieving. You keep moving, but you don't know where you're going. And no amount of progress can fix a direction you never chose. The Stoic answer is not to abandon your responsibilities. It is to choose them consciously. Know what matters. Know what you stand for. Then let your actions reflect it. Because a life doesn't become meaningful simply because it looks successful. It becomes meaningful when the person living it knows why it matters. Maybe you don't need a completely different life. Maybe you need to stop living someone else's definition of a good one. There is a reason silence feels uncomfortable. It removes the distractions. No phone. No music. No scrolling. No one to impress. Just you. And your thoughts. At first, you feel bored. Then restless. Then something deeper appears. A thought you avoided. A question you ignored. A feeling you buried. You suddenly notice how tired you really are. The Stoics valued silence. Not because silence is easy. Because silence reveals. It shows you what noise was hiding. Think about your day. How often are you truly alone with your mind? The moment you feel uncomfortable, you reach for your phone. The moment you feel bored, you find entertainment. The moment a difficult thought appears, you change the subject. So the thought remains. Waiting. This is why distraction can become dangerous. It doesn't remove discomfort. It only delays it. And delayed thoughts often become louder. The Stoics believed reflection was necessary. You need moments to examine your own mind. To ask, why am I doing this? What am I chasing? What am I afraid of? What actually matters? These questions can feel uncomfortable. But discomfort is not always the enemy. Sometimes it is information. Maybe your emptiness is trying to tell you something. Maybe you are exhausted. Maybe you are living for approval. Maybe you are chasing goals that aren't yours. Maybe you have forgotten what you value. You won't discover the answer if you never become quiet enough to listen. So tonight, give yourself a few minutes. No scrolling. No noise. No escape. Just silence. Let your thoughts arrive. Don't fight them. Don't run from them. Listen. Because sometimes the answer you keep searching for outside yourself has been waiting quietly inside your own mind. Nothing can make a good life feel empty faster than comparison. You open your phone. Someone is richer. Someone is more successful. Someone is traveling. Someone looks happier. And suddenly, your own life feels smaller. But nothing actually changed. Your room is the same. Your family is the same. Your goals are the same. Only your attention changed. You stopped looking at your life and started measuring it against someone else's. The Stoics understood this trap. They knew that peace disappears when you judge your life by another person's standards. There will always be someone ahead. More talented. More successful. More popular. More experienced. If you make their life your measuring stick, you will always feel behind. And that feeling can become exhausting. Because you stop appreciating what you have. You only notice what you don't have. But remember something important. You are usually comparing your real life to someone else's selected moments. You see the result. Not the struggle. You see the smile. Not the difficult days. You see the achievement. Not the years behind it. So ask yourself. Who decided I was behind? Who decided their timeline was supposed to be mine? The Stoics would bring your attention back to what you can control. Your choices. Your actions. Your character. Your effort. That is your territory. Someone else's success is not your failure. Someone else's happiness is not proof that your life is lacking. And someone else's timeline does not define yours. Maybe your life isn't empty. Maybe you have simply been looking at it through someone else's eyes. And the moment you stop comparing, you may finally notice how much you already have. Sometimes you feel empty because you are always trying to be enough for other people. You want them to like you. You want them to respect you. You want them to notice your success. You want them to approve of your choices. So you adjust. You change. You hide parts of yourself. And slowly, your life becomes a performance. You stop asking, "What do I believe?" and start asking, "What will they think?" That is where your peace begins to disappear. Because approval is never stable. One compliment makes you feel powerful. One criticism makes you doubt yourself. One person ignores you. And suddenly your whole mood changes. The Stoics saw this clearly. Other people's opinions are outside your control. You can control your actions, your character, your response. But you cannot control what someone thinks about you. So why build your peace on something you cannot control? Imagine this. Tomorrow, nobody praises you. Nobody notices your achievements. Nobody tells you that you're doing well. Would you still choose the same path? Would you still want the same things? That question can reveal something uncomfortable. Maybe you aren't chasing success. Maybe you're chasing validation. Maybe you aren't trying to build a great life. Maybe you're trying to prove that you are worthy of one. And no amount of approval can permanently settle that question. There will always be another person to impress. Another opinion to win. Another standard to reach. So the Stoic lesson is simple. Do what you believe is right. Build your character. Keep your values. Let people misunderstand you, if necessary. Because peace begins when you stop needing everyone to agree with your life. You don't need an audience to make your life meaningful. You need integrity. And when you finally stop performing, you may discover something unexpected. The person you were trying so hard to prove, you already were. There is another reason you may feel empty. Your life has become too easy. Nothing is seriously wrong. Everything is comfortable. Your routine is familiar. Your days are predictable. And yet, you feel strangely disconnected. Why? Because comfort feels good. But constant comfort can make life feel meaningless. Think about the moments you're most proud of. They usually weren't easy. You had to struggle. You had to learn. You had to fail. You had to keep going. That difficulty gave those moments meaning. The Stoics understood this. They didn't see every hardship as something to escape. Sometimes, difficulty is what builds you. It gives you a reason to grow. It gives your effort weight. It reminds you that you are capable of more. But when every day becomes easy, you can stop challenging yourself. You consume more. You create less. You watch more. You experience less. You wait for life to entertain you. And slowly, something inside you goes quiet. The answer isn't to make your life miserable. It is to give yourself something meaningful to overcome. Learn something difficult. Build something. Practice discipline. Take responsibility. Do something that requires patience. Something that makes you think. This is hard. But also, I am becoming stronger. That feeling is different from pleasure. It is fulfillment. The Stoics believed character grows through action. Not through comfort. Not through wishing. Not through waiting. Through action. So ask yourself, what in my life is asking me to grow? If the answer is nothing, maybe that is part of the problem. Because sometimes, you don't need more comfort. You need a challenge worth accepting. A life with no difficulty may look peaceful from the outside. But a life with no growth can feel empty from within. You can be comfortable and still feel empty. You can spend hours watching things you enjoy. You can eat your favorite food. Listen to music. Play games. Scroll for hours. And still, when everything stops, the emptiness returns. Why? Because pleasure and fulfillment are not the same thing. Pleasure makes you feel good. For a moment. Fulfillment gives you a reason to keep going. The Stoics understood this difference. They didn't say pleasure was bad. They simply refused to make pleasure the purpose of life. Because pleasure fades. The exciting thing becomes normal. The new thing becomes familiar. The experience becomes a memory. And then your mind asks, what next? So you search again. Another video. Another purchase. Another experience. Another distraction. And slowly, you become dependent on stimulation. Silence feels boring. Ordinary days feel empty. Nothing feels exciting enough. But maybe the problem isn't that life became boring. Maybe your mind became addicted to constant stimulation. Real fulfillment is quieter. It comes from creating, learning, helping, building, improving, keeping your word, doing something that matters. Even when nobody is watching. These things may not give you instant excitement. But they give your life weight. Ask yourself, what did I do today that actually mattered to me? Not what entertained me. Not what distracted me. What mattered? That question can change everything. Because a day filled with pleasure can disappear without a trace. But a day filled with meaning can stay with you. The Stoic lesson is simple. Don't ask life to constantly entertain you. Ask yourself, what kind of person you are becoming. Because when purpose becomes stronger, the need for endless stimulation becomes weaker. And sometimes, the emptiness you feel is simply your mind asking for something deeper. Maybe you feel empty because you think your life should be extraordinary. You see someone winning, someone traveling, someone becoming famous, someone building something impressive. And suddenly, an ordinary life feels like failure. You start thinking, I should be doing more. I should be further ahead. My life should mean something bigger. But who decided that? The Stoics saw meaning differently. A good life does not need to look impressive. It needs to be lived with character. Think about an ordinary day. You keep your word. You control your anger. You help someone. You finish what you started. You choose patience when anger would be easier. Nobody applauds. Nobody posts about it. Nobody even knows. But you know. And that matters. Because your character is built in moments nobody sees. We live in a world that rewards visibility. If people see it, we think it matters. If people praise it, we think it has value. But the Stoics asked a different question. Are you becoming someone you respect? Not famous. Not admired. Not envied. Respected. By yourself. Because there is a strange freedom in no longer needing your life to impress anyone. You can live quietly. Grow quietly. Build quietly. And still live a powerful life. Maybe you don't need a more extraordinary life. Maybe you need to stop judging your ordinary moments as if they are worthless. Your life doesn't have to look impressive to be meaningful. Sometimes, the deepest life is the one nobody else notices. Sometimes, the emptiness comes from fighting reality. You replay the past. You imagine how things should have gone. You wish people had acted differently. You wish life had given you another chance. And every time, you argue with what already happened. But the past doesn't listen. Reality doesn't negotiate. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew there was a difference between accepting reality and approving of it. Acceptance simply means, this is what happened. Now, what can I do with it? That question changes everything. You cannot control what someone did. You cannot control what you lost. You cannot control what happened yesterday. But you can control what happens next. Imagine standing in the rain, angry because it is raining. Your anger won't stop it. It only makes you suffer while the rain continues. Life can be like that. You waste your energy fighting what cannot be changed. Then you have nothing left for what actually can be changed. The Stoics called this wisdom. Know what belongs to you. Your choices. Your actions. Your response. Your character. Everything else is not fully yours to command. And when you understand that, something becomes lighter. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is still in my hands? That question gives you power back. Maybe your life isn't empty. Maybe you're exhausted from fighting things you were never meant to control. Let the past remain the past. Let other people be other people. Let reality be reality. Then turn your attention to the one place where your power still exists. Your next choice. Because peace does not come when life finally becomes perfect. Peace begins when you stop demanding perfection before allowing yourself to live. Maybe the emptiness comes from constantly trying to become someone else. You see who you want to be. More confident. More successful. More disciplined. More respected. And suddenly, the person you are today never feels good enough. So you keep fixing yourself. One flaw. Then another. One goal. Then another. You keep saying, "I'm not there yet." And because you're always focused on who you could become, you forget to notice who you already are. The Stoics believed improvement matters. But they also understood something important. Growth should not become self-rejection. You can improve yourself without hating yourself. You can have ambition without believing you are worthless until you succeed. There is a difference. One says, "I want to become better." The other says, "I am not enough until I become better." That second belief can create endless emptiness. Because there is always another flaw to fix. Another level to reach. Another version of yourself to chase. And suddenly, your entire life becomes preparation for a future that never arrives. Stop for a moment. Look at who you are today. Not who you could become. Not who someone else expects you to be. You. Right now. You have already survived things you once thought you couldn't handle. You have already grown. You have already changed. You are not standing at the beginning. You are already on the journey. The Stoic lesson is not to stop improving. It is to stop making your worth dependent on improvement. Become better. Because you value your life. Not because you believe you are worthless without success. There is a quiet peace that comes when you can say, "I am still growing. But I don't have to hate where I am." Maybe that is what your emptiness has been asking for. Not a new version of you. Just permission. To finally accept the person you are. While becoming the person you want to be. There is another reason you feel empty. You keep postponing your life. You tell yourself, "I'll enjoy it later. When I have more time. When I become successful. When things get easier. When I finally reach my goal. Then I'll slow down. Then I'll enjoy my life." But there is a problem. Later never stays later. It keeps moving. And suddenly, years have passed. You were so busy preparing to live that you forgot to live. The Stoics understood the value of the present moment. Not because the future doesn't matter, but because the present is the only part of life you can actually experience. Think about today. How much of it did you truly notice? The morning. The conversation. The food. The sky. The small moments between your responsibilities. Or were you already thinking about tomorrow? This is how emptiness grows quietly. Your body is here. But your mind is always somewhere else. You are eating. But thinking about work. You are with people. But thinking about your next problem. You are resting. But worrying about tomorrow. You keep waiting for the perfect moment. To finally feel alive. But life rarely announces when the perfect moment arrives. It simply happens. A normal morning. A simple conversation. A quiet walk. A moment of laughter. Nothing extraordinary. Yet these moments are your life. The Stoic lesson is simple. Do not sacrifice today. For a future you are not guaranteed. Plan for tomorrow. Work toward your goals. But don't forget to live while you're getting there. Because one day, you may realize something painful. You spent years trying to build a life you never stopped to experience. And perhaps the emptiness was never asking for more time. It was asking you to finally notice the time you already have. You can be busy all day and still feel empty. You answer messages, finish tasks, solve problems, move from one thing to the next. Your day is full, but your mind feels strangely quiet. Not peaceful, just disconnected. Because being busy is not the same as having purpose. Sometimes we fill every empty space because we are afraid of what we might notice. If we slow down, the Stoics understood the difference. A meaningful life is not measured by how much you do. It is measured by why you do it. You can spend 10 hours working and still move nowhere inside. You can complete 100 tasks and avoid the one question that matters. What am I actually living for? That question can feel uncomfortable. So we stay busy. Busy becomes our identity. We say, I don't have time. But sometimes, we have time. We just don't want silence. Because silence gives us room to notice what feels wrong. Maybe your schedule is full, but your life has no direction. Maybe you're productive, but not fulfilled. Maybe you're achieving, but not connected. There is a difference. The Stoics would ask you to examine your actions, not just count them. Ask yourself, is this making me better? Is this serving something meaningful? Is this moving me toward the person I want to become? If the answer is no, being busy won't save you. It will only keep you distracted. So don't measure your day by how exhausted you became. Measure it by whether you lived according to what matters. Because a full calendar does not guarantee a full life. And sometimes, the emptiness you feel is simply the space left behind when activity replaces meaning. Sometimes the emptiness comes from losing trust in yourself. You make a promise, then break it. You set a goal, then quit. You say you'll change, then return to the same habits. One time feels small, but repeated enough, something changes inside you. You stop believing your own words. You tell yourself, I'll do it tomorrow. But a part of you already knows you won't. This creates a quiet kind of emptiness. Because confidence is not built by thinking highly of yourself. It is built by proving to yourself that your word means something. The Stoics placed enormous value on self-discipline. Not perfection. Discipline. Doing what you said you would do. Especially when you don't feel like doing it. Start small. If you say you'll wake up at a certain time, keep the promise. If you say you'll finish something, finish it. If you decide to spend less time distracted, put the phone down. Every small promise you keep adds another brick to your inner strength. And every promise you repeatedly break weakens it. This is why discipline can change how you feel about your life. It gives you evidence. Evidence that you can trust yourself. You don't need to become perfect. You need consistency. Because when you trust yourself, you don't need constant motivation. You know you will act. You know you will recover. You know you will keep moving. That creates something deeper than confidence. It creates self-respect. And maybe the emptiness you feel is partly because you have been waiting for life to make you feel stronger. But strength is built differently. You build it. One promise at a time. One choice. One disciplined action. One day. When nobody is watching. And slowly. You become someone you can rely on. Sometimes. You feel empty because life didn't give you what you thought you deserved. You worked hard. You tried your best. You expected things to go right. But they didn't. Someone else got the opportunity. Someone else was chosen. Someone else seemed to get the life you thought should have been yours. And inside, resentment begins. You keep thinking. Why them? Why not me? The Stoics understood this pain. But they also understood the danger of expecting life to follow your personal definition of fairness. Life does not promise equal outcomes. Good people can struggle. Hard work can fail. Plans can collapse. And sometimes, there is no satisfying explanation. You can spend years demanding an answer that reality will never give you. Or, you can ask a different question. What can I do now? That question moves you from resentment back to action. You cannot control what someone else received. You cannot rewrite what happened. You cannot force life to give you the outcome you imagined. But you can decide what kind of person you will become because of it. Will disappointment make you bitter? Or wiser? Will failure make you stop? Or teach you? Will unfairness destroy your character? Or strengthen it? This is where Stoicism becomes practical. The goal is not to pretend everything is fair. The goal is to stop allowing unfairness to control who you become. Sometimes life takes something from you. But it does not have to take your character. It does not have to take your patience. It does not have to take your ability to begin again. So if something in your life feels deeply unfair, don't waste all your energy asking, why did this happen? Ask yourself, what will I do with what happened? Because you may not control the event. But you still have a choice about the person who walks away from it. Sometimes the emptiness comes from wanting too much. Not because wanting is wrong, but because every new desire creates another place for disappointment. You want success. Then more success. You want comfort. Then greater comfort. You want people to respect you. Then everyone must respect you. You want life to go your way. Then every obstacle feels like an attack. Slowly, your peace becomes conditional. I'll be happy if this happens. If they understand. If everything works out. But life rarely follows conditions. The Stoics knew this. They taught that freedom grows when you stop demanding that reality match every desire. Imagine carrying a heavy bag. Every desire adds another stone. More approval. More money. More attention. More control. More certainty. Eventually, you wonder why you're exhausted. But perhaps the answer is simple. You're carrying too much. The Stoic solution was not to stop caring. It was to learn the difference between wanting something and needing it for your peace. You can want success without needing success to feel worthy. You can want love without needing another person to complete you. You can want a better future without hating the present. That distinction is powerful. Because when you stop making your happiness conditional, life becomes lighter. You still work. You still dream. You still improve. But you are no longer begging reality to make you feel complete. And maybe that is what freedom actually feels like. Not having everything. Not controlling everything. Not getting everything you want. But being able to say, I would love for this to happen. Even if it doesn't. I can still be okay. That is a very different way to live. And sometimes, the emptiness disappears. Not when you finally get more. But when you finally realize how little you actually need. Sometimes you feel empty. Because you are too afraid to lose what you already have. You finally get something good. A relationship. A comfortable life. Success. Security. And instead of enjoying it, you start worrying. What if it ends? What if I lose it? What if tomorrow changes everything? Now you are holding something. But you are not truly enjoying it. Your mind is already grieving something. That hasn't even happened. The Stoics had a powerful practice for this. They reminded themselves that everything they love is temporary. Not to become cold. Not to stop caring. But to appreciate more deeply. Think about something you use every day. Because it is always there. You barely notice it. But imagine it suddenly disappearing. Your attention changes immediately. You notice its value. This is the idea behind negative visualization. For a moment. Remember that nothing is guaranteed. People change. Circumstances change. Opportunities disappear. Life moves. And that is not a reason for fear. It is a reason for gratitude. When you understand that something is temporary, you stop treating it as ordinary. You pay attention. You listen. You appreciate. You become present. The problem isn't loving things. The problem is believing they must remain exactly the same for you to be okay. The Stoic mindset says, love what you have. Appreciate what you have. But remember, you do not own tomorrow. That thought can actually make life feel richer. A simple conversation becomes important. A normal morning feels different. A person you love becomes someone you truly notice. Because you finally understand that ordinary does not mean guaranteed. And sometimes, the emptiness isn't caused by having too little. It comes from being so worried about losing the future that you forget to appreciate the present. You don't need every day to feel good. That may sound strange. But think about it. What if a meaningful life was never supposed to feel amazing all the time? We have been taught to chase happiness, to avoid boredom, to escape discomfort, to fix every bad mood. So when an ordinary day feels heavy, we immediately think something is wrong. The Stoics saw it differently. They understood that life contains everything: pleasure, pain, success, failure, excitement, boredom, peace, uncertainty. A good life isn't one where you experience only good feelings. It is one where you can handle all of them. That changes the question. Instead of asking, how can I feel happy today? Ask, how can I live well today? Those are not the same question. Maybe today is difficult. You can still be patient. Maybe you're disappointed. You can still act with courage. Maybe you're bored. You can still use your time wisely. Maybe you feel empty. You can still choose something meaningful. This is where Stoicism becomes powerful. It doesn't promise that you will never feel bad. It teaches you that a bad feeling does not have to become a bad life. Your emotions can visit you, without becoming your master. You don't have to run from every uncomfortable feeling. You can notice it, understand it, and keep moving. Because sometimes, the constant search for happiness is what makes us unhappy. We keep checking. Do I feel good yet? And forget to ask. Am I living well? So stop demanding that every moment feel special. Let some days be ordinary. Let some days be difficult. Let some moments simply exist, without needing to become exciting. Because peace begins when you stop needing life to constantly make you feel good, before you allow yourself to live it. Maybe the emptiness comes from one final illusion. You think you need to find yourself, so you keep searching. A new goal. A new place. A new version of yourself. A new beginning. But what if you are not lost? What if you are simply distracted? Distracted by opinions. By comparison. By fear. By endless desires. By the need to become someone impressive. The Stoics believed that peace begins with knowing yourself. Not the version you show people. The real version. The one who exists when nobody is watching. Ask yourself, what do I actually value? What kind of person do I want to be? What am I willing to stand for? What am I willing to let go of? These questions matter more than asking what you should achieve next. Because achievements can change. People can leave. Circumstances can change. But your character is something you carry everywhere. That is why the Stoics focused so much on virtue, wisdom, courage, self-control, justice. These were not just ideas. They were a way of living. And when your actions begin matching your values, something changes inside you. You stop feeling divided. You stop saying one thing and living another. You stop chasing every desire and start choosing deliberately. That creates inner stability. Not because life becomes perfect, but because you finally know where you stand. Maybe you have been searching for happiness, when what you really needed was direction. Maybe you don't need to find yourself. Maybe you need to choose yourself. Choose your values. Choose your actions. Choose what deserves your attention. And let the rest become noise. Because when you know what matters, you don't need life to constantly tell you that you matter. You already know. Maybe the deepest reason you feel empty is because you keep waiting for life to give you permission to be at peace. You think something must change first. Your circumstances. Your success. Your relationships. Your future. But what if peace doesn't begin there? What if it begins with your relationship with yourself? The Stoics never promised a perfect life. They offered something more useful. A way to remain steady. When life refuses to be perfect, you cannot control everything. You never could. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Things will change. Some days will feel heavy. And some dreams will never happen exactly as you imagined. But none of that decides who you become. That part is still yours. You can choose your response. You can choose your values. You can choose where your attention goes. You can choose what deserves your energy. And slowly, you stop asking life, what are you going to give me? You start asking yourself, what can I give to this life? That is a powerful shift. Because fulfillment is not always found by receiving more. Sometimes it is found by giving more meaning. To what you already have. A conversation. A responsibility. A difficult day. A person you love. A promise you keep. A small act of courage. These moments may look ordinary. But your life is made from ordinary moments. So don't wait for some future version of your life to finally feel alive. Be present now. Appreciate what is here. Work on what you can change. Release what you cannot. And stop measuring your worth by how perfect your life looks. You may still have empty days. You may still feel lost sometimes. That doesn't mean you are broken. It means you are human. The Stoic truth is not everything will be fine. It is deeper than that. Even when everything is not fine, you can still choose how you will meet it. And perhaps that is the peace you were searching for all along. Not a perfect life. Not a life without emptiness. But a mind that no longer needs everything to be perfect before it can finally say, I am okay.